It is my job to serve you as best as I can. And what that means is that I am constantly looking for new ways to work better, to make my practice more effective. My name is Sean. I'm a mental health coach. I see 40 plus clients a week. I have a 98% satisfaction rating from over 1,700 ratings. And what I have been focusing on recently when it comes to improving my practice is speed. So I have a strength as a coach that I am infinitely patient. I know a lot of coaches that they will, have some sort of client that is feeling really hopeless or something like that. And it can be really frustrating for them in the face of that. And for myself, it doesn't feel that way. For myself, when I am faced with hopeless clients, there's just this sort of unyielding faith that I feel that it's like, no, we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna work through this. And what I have realized is that even though that's great, even though having unyielding faith in my clients is great, sometimes we're on a clock. Sometimes we don't have forever, whether that is because of, decisions that the client is going to make or because of, the client's financial situation. We don't always have forever to figure it out. The way that I've analogized it before is it's sort of like somebody comes to me and they're on fire and they're like, please help me. And I'm like, be patient. And when I put myself in my client's shoes, I'm like, fuck you, dude. I'm on fire. I don't have time to be patient. And so I have really started to think about this idea of how can I increase the speed of helping my clients. In exploring this idea of speed and, getting some external perspective, talking to a bunch of people about what is going on, this theme keeps coming up over and over and over again. And it is this theme of going through the body. I keep hearing this feedback that it's like, if you want to work really, really quickly on someone's mental health, go through the body. And I actually have a lot of resistance to this idea. And I think that the reason why is because you always see those Instagram memes where, somebody goes to a therapist and talks about the worst trauma that they've ever been through in their entire life. And the feedback that they get from their therapist is, have you tried yoga? And it's just brain dead advice. And I never wanted to offer that to my clients. I always wanted to offer something better to my clients, Have you tried drinking water? Have you eaten? Like that kind of crap that just doesn't seem effective. But I was talking with a colleague of mine, another coach recently, and she used this really wonderful analogy, which is she said, I think about it sort of like hardware and software, that you can have, you can update your software and have the most advanced software out there. But if your hardware is busted, it doesn't matter how good your software is, it's not going to work. Or another way to put this is that if you don't take care of your body, then it doesn't matter how well you take care of your mind, your body is going to impair the function of your mind. And that stuck with me. And so I continued to try to explore this idea of, okay, because I keep getting this feedback of go through the body, if I wanted to go through the body, how do I go about doing that? How do I help my clients to do that? Because I've had some personal experiences in terms of going through the body. Things like yoga, for instance, are one of the ways that I go through the body that are really fulfilling to me. And I've talked about yoga in different places on my channel and stuff like that. But it seems harder to sort of pitch that to clients. And so I made a discovery recently where I realized that addressing hardware and addressing software can actually be addressed in the same way. And that way is through listening. Let me give you an example of what I mean by this. Recently, I started having some stomach issues and it was sort of getting worse and worse until eventually my stomach was just sort of in a constant state of discomfort. And I was like, man, what is going on? And so I started experimenting with how to help my stomach. So the first thing I did was I sort of checked in with the software, because that's sort of my go-to. I feel like I have a mastery of software. So I checked in with my software and sort of made sure everything was copacetic. I didn't feel like I was working too hard or super stressed or anything like that. And it wasn't that. And so then I went to the body. And the way that I addressed the body was I said, okay, well, maybe it's something that I'm eating. Even though nothing really had changed in the way that I was eating, I was like, maybe, I don't know, maybe something changed. So I went on the brat diet, which is bananas, rice, applesauce, and toast. And after a few days, my stomach started feeling better. And so then I started incorporating, little by little, started incorporating more foods back into my diet and found what was upsetting my stomach and what wasn't. And eventually I sort of had it narrowed down and knew what it was that was upsetting my stomach and just adjusted my diet accordingly. And now my stomach feels better. And so this is to say that I think that a lot of times in our society, we are taught to ignore ourselves, where whether it is the mind or the body, when it comes to the software side of things, it's like, suck it up, buttercup, real men don't cry, all that sort of stuff, whether it's men or women, whatever the case. We are taught to ignore ourselves, to invalidate our emotions, to say, oh, it's so stupid that I feel this way. And a big part of the work that I do with clients is helping them to tune back in and listen to the signals that their mind is sending them. And I think that the same thing is true with our bodies, because in society, we have this sort of extractive nature with our body, or extractive relationship with our bodies, where we, want our bodies to perform. And when they don't, instead of being curious about, hey, what is it that's going on? We get angry, we get frustrated with our bodies. I don't know if this is on the same track, but recently my mental health has been okay. Like, I'm aware of my stress and stuff and can tell myself I'm okay, but my body is still overreacting. Now I think would be a good time to be like, well, have you tried insert drink water physical fitness advice? Totally. Yeah, that's really interesting. So there's a couple of things about that. I'll sort of divert for a second to talk about that, because I think that's really interesting, Cuddle. There's a couple of things about that. The first is that I do think that, if your body is still reacting, that it is totally possible, drinking water, physical fitness, that sort of stuff could definitely be helpful. The other thing that I have experienced in that sort of realm, when I first left school, so throughout school, teachers would always do this thing that I absolutely hated, where they would say, if you haven't started on that project, you're probably going to fail, so you better get started. And it was basically this way to guilt people into doing their work so that they wouldn't procrastinate and things like that. And it always stressed me out. It always made me feel guilty and bad, even though I knew that I was a great student. I got straight A's, like no problem. It was super easy for me. I knew that if I started last minute, I would be able to finish it and get a better grade than most people in the class. So, but despite that, there was still this like weight on my shoulders that would constantly, my body would sort of like seize up, and I'd be like, oh God, I should be working on that project. And so when I left school, this really weird thing started happening where I'd be, sitting on the couch after work or something, and my body would seize up in the same way. It'd be like, oh God, we're supposed to be doing something. And it was this sort of muscle memory that my body had learned to seize up and worry about this stuff. And what's really interesting is that, there was nothing to worry about. I didn't have any assignments due or anything. It was just that muscle memory. And so I had to sort of intentionally walk my body through, hey, it's okay. There's nothing to worry about. There's no project to do. We were okay. We did our day at work. There's no homework. It's all okay. And it took a little while for my body to readjust. I'm constantly bogged down with guilt. Yeah. So, talking about, what bogs you down with guilt, I think is sort of a good path to go down. But sticking to the original sort of idea, I think that there is this sort of walking your body through, hey, that sort of breaking of muscle memory of, hey, it's okay. There's no assignment to do, nothing like that. So, hopping back in, So, because we have this sort of extractive nature with our bodies, we don't listen to the signals that our body is telling us. And the other sort of piece of this is that if we are only listening to the body, or we are only listening to the mind, it's sort of like listening to a conversation where you can only hear one person talking, like someone talking on the phone or something. You can sort of pick up, the gist of what it is that's going on, but there's a lot of important details that you miss. And so I think that this idea of listening to both the body and the mind, really paying attention to the signals that your body and mind send you, I have personally found really valuable and started to see value in the work that I do with clients. Now, there's one last thing about this, sort of going through the body, sort of increasing the speed of the work that I do with people that I think is really important, which is that I think that in some ways we outsource our own body's wisdom to external places, whether that is doctors or influencers or, whatever the case. And to be very clear, I'm not saying that, you shouldn't go to doctors or anything like that. I think that, external perspective is invaluable. It's one of the reasons that I'm in the line of work that I am, is because I think that, no matter how good you are at introspecting, I think I'm really good at introspecting, and I still seek out external perspective because everybody has blind spots. And so by seeking out that external perspective, it can help to plug up those blind spots. But I think that the danger that we fall into is when we outsource our body's wisdom to when we stop participating in the conversation with our own bodies. It's great to have other people participating in that conversation too, but when you stop participating in it altogether and just rely solely on others in order to tell you what is wrong with your mind, your body, etc., I think that that's where we get into trouble. All of this to say that if you have really struggled with, you've done the hard mental health work and you feel like there's just something missing, you feel like you're hitting a wall, try tuning into your body and see what your body is telling you, what signals your body is telling you. Quick note about that, by the way. Sometimes, if you have been ignoring your body for a long time, there are so many signals that it can be hard to parse things out and figure out what's coming from where, especially if you're also ignoring your mind signals, because then there's signals from your mind, there's signals from your body, and it's sort of like a pond that has a whole bunch of rain falling in it, and so you can't trace the ripples. They're just going everywhere. You don't know where any individual ripple is starting from. And one great way to start to sort of get an idea of what it is that is going on in your body, what signals your body is trying to send you, is just to go to a lab and order some blood work. And then you can take that blood work. I mean, you can absolutely, get a doctor's perspective on the blood work, but you can also take that blood work and, punch it into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT can give you some information about what it is, what that information means, essentially. And so it sort of is like a report card for your body. And so in this idea of listening to your body, I think one of the most concrete sort of action steps that you can take, other than just sort of, regular listening, I'll give one more example. I realized in this, sort of changing of my diet and everything, I realized that I was judging my hunger according to my mouth. And I'll be totally honest, my mouth is always hungry. And so I started judging my hunger according to my stomach. And what I realized is I'm not that hungry that often. Like, my stomach is not actually that hungry that often. And so I've really been changing how I've been eating recently, because I started listening to this signal from my stomach, where my stomach was like, I'm actually full. Like, I'm good. I don't need more. So other than just tuning into your body, I think that blood work can be a really great way to sort of get a report card on what it is that's going on for your body. If you feel completely lost in how the heck to do that by yourself, I would love to have a free 50-minute session with you where we sit down and just sort of talk about, what it is that you've been experiencing, helping you to tune in. I basically would be serving as sort of a mirror for you to figure out, what it is that's going on for you. If you like this idea of sort of getting back in touch, tuning back in with your body, with your mind, that sort of thing, and talking a little bit about why the heck we, have lost touch with that. This video, it'll either pop up here or down in the description, depending on where you're watching this, goes into detail about this way that I work that I call intuitive working, that helps you to really tune into what is important to you and sort of goes into all the details about that. So if you're interested, check it out, and I'll see you next time. Bye.